Inside a massive garage, Charlie is busy working on an old Cessna. His wife Sarah gifted it to him for his birthday, and he's been fixing it up ever since. She walks in, suitcase in hand, reminding him she's about to leave for a business trip to London. Once again, she asks if he wants to join. Once again, he politely declines, saying he has too much work waiting at the office. He works as a cryptographer at the CIA, and his job is to crack the toughest codes. And oh, if he looks familiar, that's because, yes, it's Mr. Robot, but this time, the hoodie's been traded for government clearance. She heads out, and their goodbye is tender, just the kind that usually signals something bad is coming. Not long after, Charlie shows up at CIA headquarters, passes through a maze of security systems he personally helped design, and finally settles into his desk at the Decryption and Analysis Department. That's when a familiar alert pings. It's from Inquiline, a long-time anonymous contact with a habit of sharing confidential intel. Today's message is different, though. The files come with a warning. What's inside could shake the agency itself. Charlie tries guessing Inquiline's location. Istanbul? The reply dodges the question. Setting the mystery aside for now, Charlie gets to work. But even for someone as sharp as him, these codes refuse to budge. A quick break later, he returns to a phone call from Sarah, who's just landed in London. Of course, he already knew. He's been tracking her phone. Standard protective husband behavior, or something like that. Their chat is brief. The encrypted documents pull his attention again, and this time, he heads to a secure, higher clearance zone to dig deeper. With more computing muscle at his disposal, the files are finally cracked open, and what they reveal stops him cold. Buried inside are government secrets, drone strikes disguised as terrorist bombings. Footage shows the aftermath, multiple dead, including French special forces and Danish Marines. At the center of it all is his own boss, Chief Moore, the man who authorized and buried the whole thing. Later that night, back home, Charlie tries calling Sarah. She doesn't answer, so he leaves a message, unaware that everything in his world is already beginning to fall apart. The next day, Charlie arrives at the office and finds Moore waiting for him. Without saying much, Moore takes him to the office of Samantha, the newly appointed CIA director. She informs Charlie that there's been a terrorist attack at a hotel in London, and Sarah was among the victims. Charlie doesn't believe it. He asks to call Sarah, but instead, Moore turns on the news. The reporter explains how 4 terrorists stormed the hotel, took 4 hostages, and killed 2 of them. Moore then plays the hotel's security footage, showing the chaos during the attack. It confirms what Charlie didn't want to accept. Sarah was one of the victims. When Charlie gets home, his house is surrounded by reporters. Police are trying to keep them back. A colleague helps him get inside without being noticed. The following day, Charlie confronts Moore and his deputy, Caleb. He's suspicious. How did the attackers get past the thousands of security cameras in London? How did they manage to drive through traffic undetected? Moore says they're working on it, but Caleb simply tells him to go home. Later, Charlie goes to the airport to collect Sarah's body and her belongings. Back at home, he opens her suitcase and finds a gift she had bought for him. That moment breaks him. Trying to stay distracted, Charlie returns to work and accesses the restricted system again. He hacks into the hotel's surveillance network and nearby street footage. With that, he builds a timeline of the attack. The 4 terrorists had stolen a vehicle from East End and entered the hotel through the service entrance. They wiped everything. No prints, no DNA. They had a meeting planned with a group from Impact Investments in Indonesia, but something went wrong. An argument started in the hallway. One of the security guards from the firm reacted, and a terrorist opened fire, killing him and critically injuring another. Hotel security alerted the police immediately. In a rush to escape, the terrorists broke into a conference room and took hostages. Sarah was taken too. She had tried to help the others get out. By running voice and facial recognition, Charlie manages to identify all 4 attackers. The suspects are Mishka, a Belarusian criminal, Elish, a South African ex-Special Forces operative, Gretchen, a former Armenian intelligence officer, and Schiller, the elusive man who killed Sarah. But when Charlie shares this with Moore and Deputy Caleb, their expressions don't change. That's when he realizes they already knew. They tell him the operation is underway and suggest he see a therapist. The next day, Charlie slips a hidden chip into his CIA badge and walks past security without triggering any alerts. Back at his desk, he prints the classified files and uses a skimmer attached to the printer to make a digital copy. That night, he visits a bar and spends most of his time staring at a jukebox. The following morning, Charlie returns to confront Moore and Caleb again, this time with evidence in hand. He lays out Moore's covert missions one by one, including a bombing on a Syrian hospital and a strike on an Allied base in Yemen, operations that killed thousands of civilians. He threatens to take it all to director Samantha, and if that fails, to the press. At first, they laugh it off.
Anything else? An Aston Martin? A jetpack, maybe?
but Charlie reveals that he's activated a dead man's switch. Unless he enters a code every 5 hours, all the documents will be sent to major news outlets. In return for staying quiet, he demands full CIA resources and mission-specific training. He wants to hunt down the people who killed Sarah. After the meeting, Charlie makes it back to his car and throws up from the stress. Later in the office, Moore brushes off the threat as a bluff, but Caleb warns him they can't take that chance. If it turns out to be fake, they'll find the trigger, and then a fatal training accident can be arranged. Later, Caleb and his team start digging into how Charlie managed to copy the classified files. The idea of a skimmer comes up, something that wouldn't work on their secure systems, but could have worked on a printer. They figure Charlie probably routed the files to a printer and used a magnetic strip to clone the data. Security footage confirms it. Charlie had bought a magnetic strip from a local store, but they still can't figure out how he smuggled it in and out of the building. While searching Charlie's house, they find out he visited a certain bar twice. They go there to check, and under the jukebox, they discover an ABBA CD. Caleb selects that CD from the jukebox catalog, but all that plays is static. That's enough. They pull the disc. Charlie had left it behind. Meanwhile, Charlie arrives at a CIA training facility where he's greeted by Colonel Henderson. They begin at the shooting range. Charlie isn't much of a shooter. He needs to be close just to hit center. But when it comes to assembling IEDs, he's fast, focused, and precise. Henderson is impressed. Next, Charlie is drilled on his new identity. Henderson throws him around, presses him hard, all to make sure he can recite his cover under stress. After that, a batch of new passports is prepared. That night, Henderson pays Charlie a visit. He tells him point blank he's not a killer, but Charlie says he's only after justice. Henderson pulls out a pistol and hands it over, asking him to aim it at his chest. Charlie tries, but his hands won't stop shaking. Eventually, he lowers the gun. Back at the office, an agent spends hours decrypting the data from the jukebox CD. The result? Charlie was bluffing. There is no dead man's switch. They rush to inform their superiors, unaware that Charlie is still a step ahead. The chip he hid in his badge wasn't just a smuggling tool. It was a bug planted inside the files he gave Moore and Caleb. Moore realizes it too late. He quickly calls Henderson and orders him to eliminate Charlie. But by then, Charlie's already gone. He's hacked into the training facility, used a janitor's ID to log out, and disappeared. Right after the call, Moore finally spots the bug planted in the file. He speaks into it, calling Charlie's actions treason. But Charlie's already on his way out, removing his earpiece just before boarding a plane. After arriving in London, Charlie clears customs using his fake passport and heads toward Paris. But the passport triggers a CIA alert, and Moore immediately dispatches Henderson to track him down. In Paris, Charlie rents a hotel room near a restaurant where Gretchen is known to appear. Eventually, she shows up, and once she's close enough, Charlie begins tracking her phone. He spends the day outside her apartment building, waiting for the right moment. When a tenant exits, Charlie slips inside. Using a YouTube tutorial, he picks the lock on Gretchen's door and quietly enters. Inside, he snaps photos of her schedule and finds a gun in a drawer. He hesitates, but eventually takes it with him. Suddenly, his tracker warns him Gretchen is on her way back. He rushes to the stairwell and waits, but when she finally arrives, Charlie can't bring himself to shoot. Disappointed, he heads back to the hotel. Later, he reviews the photos and notices she's been visiting an allergy clinic frequently. A quick hack into her health records reveals a severe pollen allergy. The next morning, Charlie buys a large number of flowers and waits at a nearby cafe. When he sees Gretchen heading to the clinic, he follows her inside. While she's undergoing tests, the doctor steps out to fix a computer issue. Charlie, now disguised as a doctor, enters the room and locks her inside the hypobaric chamber. As the chamber begins filling with pollen, Gretchen starts to panic. The doctor and a nurse hear the noise but can't get in. The door is locked. Charlie calmly asks her to reveal Schiller's location, the man who killed Sarah. But she's too overwhelmed by the allergic reaction to respond. He opens the chamber door, and Gretchen immediately lunges at him, knocking him back. They fight across the room, slamming into furniture and trading blows. Charlie manages to draw his gun, but she tackles him, gains the upper hand, and escapes through the door. Charlie chases her outside. Just as he raises the gun, a van hits her out of nowhere. He stares at her body for a moment, shaken, then forces himself to approach. He grabs her phone and quickly runs off, tossing the lab coat in the trash as he disappears into the crowd. Back at the hotel, Charlie washes the blood off and quickly packs his things. That night, he heads to the bus station and buys a ticket to Marseille. Meanwhile, word of Gretchen's death reaches the CIA. Samantha questions Moore, who brushes it off, saying it looks like she was killed by one of their own. In Marseille, Charlie finds a bar and drinks heavily, trying to numb the guilt over Gretchen's death. For a moment, he thinks he sees Sarah dancing, but it's just a stranger who resembles her. Then he spots Henderson entering the bar. Panic sets in. He pushes past people and escapes into the street, running through alleyways until he ducks into another bar nearby, but Henderson follows him there too. Charlie heads straight for the bathroom and locks himself in. There's no window, no way out. Eventually, he's forced to come back out and sit next to Henderson at the bar.
You want a beer?
Yeah, sure.
Henderson explains that he tracked him using Gretchen's phone. After a short exchange, Charlie shows him a countdown timer on his phone, then takes off running. A bomb goes off in the bathroom, throwing the entire bar into chaos. Henderson loses him in the confusion, and the tracker signal cuts out. The next morning, Charlie contacts Inquilin for help. He's smuggled into Turkey and arrives in Istanbul. At the meeting spot, he sends a message. As he watches for a response, he notices a man's phone ringing nearby and starts walking toward him, but a woman in a burqa steps in and tells him to check his phone.
Wait, he is not who you're looking for. Check your phone.
She follows him outside and confirms her identity. She's Inquiline. She already knows about Sarah. She hands him a shopping bag and tells him to ditch his hat and backpack. To avoid drawing attention, she tells him to pretend he's out shopping and meet her again at a nearby parking lot. Later, Charlie reunites with her and they drive to her place. During the ride, she opens up. Her real name is Davies. She became a hacker 6 years ago after her husband was killed. He had worked for Russian intelligence while also being a CIA asset. In fact, he was the original Inquiline and taught her everything. Officially, he fell out of a window. Pretty standard accident for anyone linked to the KGB. At her home, Davies says this is the only place she's managed to stay longer than 3 years. But even here, she doesn't feel safe. If the Russians ever come knocking, she's already prepared. There's a gun ready for her to end it herself. Charlie and Davies begin going over the main players in the case. Schiller is identified as the one who recruits mercenaries for more. Elish is an arms dealer. Davies offers to pose as a seller herself in order to reach him. Then there's Mishka, the group's weak spot. He travels constantly and overshares everything online. They analyze his latest photos and spot a woman with him. Facial recognition leads them to her Instagram profile, confirming her location, Madrid. The next day, Deputy Caleb instructs his team to monitor all known operatives tied to the group, hoping one of them will lead them straight to Charlie. Meanwhile, Samantha meets with Moore and confronts him about continuing Black Ops without her approval. Moore brushes her off, saying her predecessor gave the same lecture, and he gave them the same answer. She has his full support, nothing more. As soon as she leaves the meeting and gets into her car, her assistant shows her a photo of Henderson in Spain. It's confirmed. Moore sent him. So Samantha responds by assigning her own agent to follow Henderson. Back in the field, Davies tracks Mishka through a hotel's security feed. Charlie flies to Madrid and checks into the same hotel. He learns that Mishka likes swimming in a pool that connects the rooftops of 2 buildings. At the same time, Henderson arrives in Madrid and starts looking for him. The following morning, Charlie begins constructing a device using scuba gear, meant to decompress the air between the layered glass of the rooftop pool. That evening, he follows Mishka to a bar. Henderson watches from the lobby, unnoticed. Inside, Charlie spots a man who looks familiar. It hits him. He's being followed. He quietly alerts Davies through his earpiece. She runs a facial scan and confirms the man's a CIA agent. Another camera feed reveals Henderson nearby too. Davies tells him to abort, but Charlie refuses. He's going through with it. When Mishka finally heads to the pool, Charlie corners him and demands to know where Schiller is. If he doesn't talk, the pool will collapse. Mishka doesn't believe him and tries to swim away. Charlie triggers the device. Cracks form along the glass. Mishka panics and starts swimming faster, but it's already too late. The pool shatters and he's swept away, along with tons of water crashing onto the street below. As Charlie escapes, Davies warns him that Henderson and the other CIA agent are closing in. He follows her directions, ducking through service doors as they give chase. Henderson nearly catches up until the other CIA agent suddenly attacks him.
Which way?
Go left.
Where is he? The other one.
I don't know, I'm looking right now.
Stop!
Charlie watches as Henderson shoves the agent's head into a washing machine. The agent manages to fire a shot, but Henderson grabs the weapon and shoots him in return. Charlie hesitates, unsure if he should step in. Davies reminds him, keep moving. The next day, Samantha brings Moore into her office and casually asks about Charlie. Moore claims he's still on bereavement leave. She doesn't press it further, but as soon as he leaves, she loads up surveillance footage from the Madrid hotel. Meanwhile, Caleb and his team are watching the same footage. It doesn't take long for them to notice Charlie had been speaking with someone the entire time. He hadn't been alone. They dig into his encrypted messages and finally uncover chats from someone going by the codename Inquiline. After some digging, they discover that Inquiline was a former agent who died years ago. The assumption? His widow picked up where he left off. That night, Davies climbs into Charlie's bed. She admits she hasn't been able to sleep beside anyone for years, and tonight, she just needs to feel human again. Or maybe she's just horny as hell. Either way, Charlie doesn't protest. But damn, the mood is cut short by a screech. Davies' pet bird sounds the alarm. A quick check of the cameras shows agents closing in on the house. They grab what they can and vanish through a hidden tunnel behind the wall. Outside, Charlie spots a drone circling the sky. They weave through neighboring buildings, barely staying ahead. By the time the agents breach the safe house, the place is already purging its data. Nothing left to find. After sprinting down the beach, they reach Davies' parked car, but the drone's already on them. Gunfire rains down. A boat joins the chase from the water. Eventually, the car gets hit. Davies takes a bullet and slumps over. With no other option, Charlie pushes her into the passenger seat and keeps driving. He doesn't stop until the agents are lost. Then, in a quiet garage, he kisses her goodbye and disappears into the night. The next morning, Charlie contacts Elish, pretending to be an arms dealer. He arranges a meeting, buys new tech gear, and flies to Romania. In an abandoned building, he sets up a full 360-degree facial scan, creates a deepfake, and injects it into a Berlin security feed. The CIA takes the bait
Heller's in Berlin.
and reroutes their agents to Germany. When Elish finally arrives, all he finds is a chair and a ringing phone. Charlie's voice tells him to look inside a nearby box. There's an IED and a photo of Sarah. If he moves, the device detonates. Charlie steps out of the shadows and demands Schiller's location. If Elish cooperates, the bomb won't go off. Elish explains that Schiller operates in Russian waters and typically collects shipments at a seaport near the Baltic. Messages only come through coded communications, all stored on his phone. He tosses it to the floor. Charlie picks it up and walks out. Seconds later, the bomb goes off, taking Elish with it. Soon after, the CIA learns about Elish's death in Romania, but they've also been tracking Charlie in Berlin and several other spots too. It finally clicks. They've been watching fake footage the whole time. Later, at a quiet Russian hotel, Charlie sits alone, imagining Sarah beside him. He opens the gift she left, a puzzle box. It doesn't take long for him to solve it, and inside, there's a handwritten message from her. The next morning, he heads down to the port and notices a suspicious vehicle. Charlie sends the coded message meant for Schiller's men and watches closely. Sure enough, a man near that car checks his phone. Target confirmed. Charlie follows him at a distance, snapping photos of the boat the man boards. Then he quietly slips away. Back at the hotel, Charlie picks up a few tools, traces the boat's registration, and tracks it to a luxury yacht. He also starts mapping out the potential sea routes Schiller might be using for his operations. At dawn, Charlie approaches the docked vessel, but before he can act, someone knocks him out cold. When he wakes up, he's aboard the yacht, face to face with Schiller at last. The man already knows Charlie planted an IED earlier, but instead of reacting with anger, Schiller just studies him and scoffs. He's realized something. Charlie might be clever enough to kill from a distance, but not up close. He hands him a gun, challenging him to prove otherwise. Charlie lifts it, but then lowers the weapon and sets it down. Suddenly, alarms go off. The yacht begins to veer sharply off course. Confusion spreads among the crew. Schiller barks orders, but no one knows what's happening. That's when Charlie reveals the twist. He's hijacked the yacht's navigation system. It's a CIA-administered vessel, and since Charlie once wrote the defense protocols himself, hacking it was child's play. They're headed straight for Finnish waters. Minutes later, Finnish Navy vessels and Interpol agents surround the yacht. Schiller and his men are arrested on the spot. Sometime later, Samantha holds a press conference. She confirms that every rogue operative using CIA resources for illegal activities has now been taken down. The agency is in cleanup mode. Back at headquarters, Henderson finds Charlie and tells him he's proud. No briefings, no missions, just quiet respect. Charlie visits Sarah's grave one last time. Then, back home, he finally does what he's been putting off for years. He takes his old plane up into the sky. Well, that's the end of this story. How did you like this movie and the recap? Let me know in the comments below. See you in the next video. Bye-bye.